Hi, my name is Suzan McDowell, President and CEO of Circle of One Marketing, and welcome to my bi-weekly show, or weekly, however I decide, show called In the Circle with Suzan, a show where I get to talk about whatever I want to with whoever I want to, and I love that so much because I have a lot of varied interest. So, as I said in my last show, it's October. We're in the fourth quarter. We're so excited. This is when our season starts, and we have a whole lot of awesome things going on. We have Jamaican Jerk Festival coming up on November 10th. We have the Art of Transformation coming up on December 4th, and then we go into 2025. And that's another story. We'll get to that later. Today, I'm so excited because I get to interview my wonderful client. I'm trying not to have any hierarchy. So my amazing client and friend, Teri Williams. Welcome, Teri Williams.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's kind of weird because you're like my good friend and my client. So first things first, I want to thank you so much. After a year of doing this show, I finally dragged you here. And I want to thank you so much for all these years of supporting Circle. I know I'm not easy, and the whole thing is not easy, but we've really done a lot of really good work together and built both of our brands. I just said no. No, and then my alarm goes on. Anyway, so we built both of our brands, and I just want to thank you for letting me be a part of building your brand.
Well, I want to thank you, actually, and Circle, and inviting me to this wonderful set and place. But no, I think we've done a lot of great work together, so I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. Okay, so this is how this show normally starts. And I mean it. I was born, and then what happened?
I was born. So I am from a family of 5. I'm a middle child.
Oh.
And I usually tell the story from the standpoint of my great-grandmother, which you know.
My honey.
My honey, yep. So my family's from Indiantown, Florida, and my honey, her name is Annie Coachman, was just my great-grandmother growing up, but I used to follow her around as a kid, and I didn't realize this until I was much older. She owned a barbecue pit. It's so funny because I just went to Indiantown. So on our street was my great-grandmother's penny candy store.
That you used to work in.
That I worked in. And then in front of it was a barbecue pit that she would barbecue, and people would line up to buy her barbecue. And then it was her house, which originally, when I was growing up, was a shotgun house. So you literally you could shoot and go through in the front
Top
and
to
back.
bottom, yeah.
And then next door was my grandmother's house, which is where we stayed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so she also owned across the street some apartments. I used to go with her to collect rent. And I know, exactly. And a juke joint.
Wait a minute, were you the security?
Give
me the money or else.
It's sort of funny that as a kid I found this fascinating. But even the juke joint, which was also across the street, Hamp's place, everybody in Indiantown knows Hamp's place, my Uncle Hamp. And that's where I learned to play pool.
What?
And I used to just hang out. And growing up, though, in that environment, it was in Booker Park. Black people lived on one side, white people lived on the other. Really taught me about business and about money. You know, white folks would come across the railroad track to meet with my great-grandmother. She would buy, knee-high soda and buy all this candy, wholesale, and then sell it
retail.
And
that's a very specific brain that does that for real.
Exactly. And so I just learned sort of the basics of business on the ground.
So what kind of kid were you? I picture you like walking behind your great-grandmother with some pigtails and, all curious because you're a naturally curious person.
Yeah. So I was always curious, and I loved school. I used to get upset if I couldn't go to school. That's how bad. I also loved a lot of things. So I was into the arts, even I a good actress.
Well, there was an arts community in India?
There was an arts community, yep. And I was also into like bike riding, exercise. I wasn't a great sports person, but I used to love sports. I had asthma actually as a child.
Oh, wow.
And so...
Do you have to have one of those nebulizers?
No, in fact, I don't even know if they were invented back then.
Yeah.
But I did have like bad asthma, and so I had to really pace myself. But then I grew out of it, so it was like childhood asthma.
Yeah. Sydney had it,
and then and then but I always loved sports. So yeah.
So okay, so you were a curious little girl, and I can imagine. So you're everywhere. You're doing all this stuff.
Yes.
And it's probably stuff that Black people in Indiantown didn't do. Once you put it all together,
in hindsight, that's true. I mean, I did some stuff that Indiantown did.
Like, why is she over there doing that?
No. I mean, I worked in a cabbage field. You
worked in a cabbage field? What is that like?
So,
I worked in a cabbage field.
Yeah. Like on Saturdays, I would get up early and I would go. The bus would come. People would get on the bus because Indiantown was it's a farming community. I mean, a lot of the people worked in the fields. Flower farm, cabbage fields, orange groves.
And it's close to Belmead, right?
It's close to, so Indiantown is in Martin County, which is one county up from Palm Beach County. But Indiantown is more to the west, close to like Pahokee, Belle Glade, Lake Okeechobee, sort of between the ocean and Lake Okeechobee.
So did you guys go to, sorry, my alarms will not stop. I'm just going to power it off. And that way we don't have to have nothing to talk about.
I didn't hear it, so.
Okay, good. I just need it to go off. Please go off phone. Anyway, okay, so what were you saying?
No, you were asking me, where's Indiantown? But
yes.
Oh, so I was saying that I did do some stuff that was, I would say typical Indiantown. But really the transformation came when I got into Brown.
Okay, yes. I remember, I always want to so you were not expected to leave Indiantown, even though you were doing all these things. Right. One of the things that we talked about all the time is the fact that, you weren't necessarily expected. You weren't pushed to go to Brown.
Right.
Or were you pushed to go to Brown? Like, how did you go from Indiantown where...
Right. So, so to some degree, I have like a dual life because my dad's family is from Indiantown, which... 5 generations. My mom's family is from Connecticut.
Okay.
And there I'd have to talk about my grandfather, who lost my grandmother when my mom was very young, and he ended up raising 7 kids on his own.
Oh, wow.
And it was really from that Connecticut, I would say, family experience that Brown came on my radar.
Got it. So you had 2 separate sets of...
I
gotcha.
2 sets of family. Sort of like you, right?
Yeah,
Texas
no, exactly.
and
You have 2, Jamaica and Texas.
Yeah.
2 separate, different,
Yeah, how that makes you, to some degree, more understanding of people.
Oh, my God.
Because you realize...
Yeah.
The diversity, whereas if you just grow up in one place, sometimes you think everybody's
like you.
Right.
Well, one of the things I enjoy about being a Jamaican is, especially as a marketer, is I could understand both. Yeah. I am an American, so I understand the unique kind of, things that are part of being American. My great-grandfather escaped slavery from North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then we have Jamaica, Kingston, which is a whole nother vibe. And it sort of allows me to be in that. So I can imagine Connecticut and that's like north and south.
Exactly. Totally different. Wow. And so, and both of them are in me, in terms of my experiences.
You can be both of those people.
Yes, exactly. So, so when I applied to college, I applied to Brown because someone in Connecticut said, hey, you should apply. But I didn't even know about Ivy League. It was just a school.
And so tell me the outfit you showed up in.
Yeah. So first of all, I had a big red
afro. Okay.
So I had dyed my hair red. It was a
big
red afro.
You dyed it red?
Red, bright red. Not just red, just bright red.
Red.
I had on a white tube top and some lime green hip pockets.
And you were ready to go.
I was ready to go. And I looked around and I was like, what is this place?
Where am I?
Who are these people?
Oh my
And it was
God.
like a cultural shock.
So wait a minute. So it's kind of like your brain was from Connecticut, and then your body is from Indiantown, and the two of them met at Brown.
Well, actually, you know, as
other way.
I'd say actually my brain was from Indiantown, but Connecticut pulled me.
Gotcha. Okay,
Because my brain, you know, between my great grandmother and I was just.
But
me.
I guess I mean the pushing for you to explore your brain.
Yes.
You know, because you're so smart.
Yes. In fact, my cousin, my favorite cousin, who's my oldest cousin, was the first one in our family, in our extended family. I'm the first one in my immediate family. She's the first one in our extended family. You know, all my cousins to go to college.
Wow.
And I tell her now how much of a role model she was for me. And she went to Central State.
But she was the first one, so you had an example.
One. Yes, yes. And she's Hakeem Jeffries' mom.
Oh, Hakeem Jeffries is your cousin. Yes, I know that.
Yes, yeah. And that's his mom.
Yes.
And she was our role model. She was my role model.
I see what you mean.
Up.
Yes, that was. So she kind of. I got you now. I got you now.
Yeah. So yes, I had her. So I would say, you know, I had Connecticut. I had Rosie.
Got it.
And then I had my great grandmother. Those were probably the two biggest
women,
influences in my life. Yeah,
gotcha.
and I'm really blessed to still have Rosie.
Yes, of course. And your cousins, Hakeem and what's his brother? Hassan and Kate. They're hilarious.
Yeah.
I like to watch them sparring on social. It's hilarious. Yeah. So, okay, great. So you get to Brown, and if I recall the story correctly, because, you know, I've been your publicist for 19 years.
Yes.
You went there to study education.
Yes, I did.
How'd you end up in economics?
Yeah. So, again, in Indiantown, you know, I was like a student teacher. You know, I used to teach kindergarten.
You're a wonderkind, basically.
And I, you know, but that's all I knew was teaching, like as a profession. So I said, okay, I'm going to major in education and become a teacher, a math teacher.
And come back to Indiantown.
I don't know if I
hadn't really thought about
back,
it.
But I was just going to be a teacher.
You're going to be a teacher. Okay.
And so when I got to Brown, I was like, okay, where's the education department? And they were like, what? And I was like, education. And they were like, there isn't one. I says, what do you mean? I want to be a teacher. And they were like, you mean a professor?
Oh, snap.
I was like,
you're like, oh.
They're like, well, there is something sort of like an education department. It's like around the corner and in the basement.
You didn't know none of this before you got there.
No.
You're thinking, yeah, of course.
No, I'm college.
Yeah, college teaching. Yeah.
And so I was really shocked. I was like, this was my first like rude awakening to like, this is something different.
Yeah, I came all the way up here.
Yes. And I also went to, they had a program for students that they thought needed help transitioning, which I did.
Of course, yeah.
But I didn't need help academically. I just needed help culturally.
Culturally, yeah. You needed a coach.
Yes. And so I ended up, they helped me choose classes. And I took math. For math, I think it was 9. I don't remember that. But I ended up taking economics.
The worst class in the world. I'm kidding. Go ahead.
The best class.
I had to take it pass fail. I mean, right brain.
Anyway, to me, it was like, oh my gosh, like I was in love. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh my God. It made perfect sense to you.
It made perfect sense.
Oh my God.
I was like, there's a class.
This is like, actually what I want to do.
Yes, exactly.
That's
that
so
combined like math and people. That's the way I would describe it.
Oh God, critical thinking.
Yeah, it's like how people think, how people make decisions. And so it was sort of like the two things that I loved, which was people and math.
Yeah.
I didn't I took the math. It was too like theoretical and they were doing, you know, I was like, no, I don't really care for that kind of math. And so I ended up majoring in economics when, you know,
wow. Were you surprised?
I was surprised that it existed, but I literally, from that day, I had found my home.
Wow.
That was it. I was going to be an economics major from the very beginning. Yeah.
Wow. It's so interesting. You're like how it fits. I know there's this thing that they talk about, Condoleezza Rice. When Condoleezza got to Harvard, I don't know where she went, and she happened to step into a Russian studies class and ended up at home. Ended up like, this is my jam. These are my people.
Yeah.
And so she is quite comfortable with Russian and in Russia. Yeah. And it just It defies what you think she's supposed to be. Not that you weren't supposed to be, you know what I mean? But you go for one thing and you end up at another, and you realize that it fits you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Well, and I guess in hindsight, it makes sense, again, because of my great-grandmother. Like that was something that attracted me from, as, a very young age. It was the sort of the transactional piece of it, a business. And so, yeah, I feel blessed that it happened, because it was just sort of happenstance. I'm like, I could have, you
could have done something. Yeah.
Did something else.
You could have done something completely different.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I had no entrepreneurial dreams. My whole dream was to marry a doctor, have 3 kids, and live in a house with a lot of windows. That was my whole goal. Oh. And then ended up, as God would have it, where I am now, which is an entrepreneur and a mother. Yeah. But what I find myself doing, and it's almost unwilling, not unwilling, but I never thought about it, that this is part of entrepreneurism, that no matter what it is, I immediately try to figure out, how do you make money? No matter what it is, how do you make money? How do you make money? Remember when I started my eyeglass business? And I was like, what am I going to do? And I'll never forget, you were like, go watch Shark Tank. Go watch Shark Tank, go watch Shark Tank. And so I was like, I didn't want to go watch Shark Tank, because I'm like, this is a great idea. What are you talking about? And then finally I was like, okay, let me go watch Shark Tank. So when people come to me now with ideas, I'm like, how are you going to make money? Yeah. And so anyway, you taught me that. And thank you. Yeah. So, okay, so you're at Brown, you're studying economics. It's the best thing ever. And then what happens?
So then another turn, because I went to a summer program at Northwestern that was for people that were interested in getting a PhD in economics, again, being a professor. And so I went to the program because I had loved economics. And while I was there, they took me to the University of Chicago Business School.
Whoa.
And then I was like, what's this?
It was like a cherry on top. And there's more.
And I was like, okay. And I made a pivot from thinking about a PhD in economics to going to business school.
Don't you feel like your choice has served way more people?
I wonder sometimes, you go through life and you wonder, what if I had taken that path? Like, what if I had been a professor? I think that, I do think things happen for a reason. I feel, sense of, spirituality, that I've been guided. It's not. Clearly. I don't, so I do think it happened for a reason. And I do see the impact that my decisions have had. But I also feel that, and this is one of the things I would say about Brown, and also about my great-grandmother, as well as Rosie, that there's always been a mission to what we do. And so, like, my great-grandmother, she was a businesswoman, but she also helped a lot of people. And that was her, she was a community person. And so I knew whatever I did, I know that for me, it was going to be, how can I give back?
Yeah, and you had an anointing. So do you feel like your great-grandmother knew what she was doing? And little Teri with her pigtails walking behind her like, oh my God. Do you think that my honey was aware of what she was passing down to you? Or how it would affect your life?
So when I realized that I was my great-grandmother, I mentioned it to my dad. And he was like, of course, like,
like, you just found this out?
I know.
Where have you been?
And same thing with, folks from Indiantown, I mentioned it, and they were like, of course, and because out of that town, she was the only woman. I mean, there were, black men, other, men that own businesses, but she was the only woman. And then my dad told me that because this was his grandmother, his grandfather worked for the railroad, worked for Seaboard. And she would take his money and invest it in real estate.
No way.
And then their son, who my Uncle Hamp, also worked for the railroad. And she would take his money.
Oh, wow.
Invest it.
And make his life
real
better.
Estate. In real estate.
Wow.
And then my great-grandfather, my dad's grandfather, passed away. And she was 41 years old.
Yes, and so she lived another 40 years. All of this by herself.
Yeah. Wow. But she had already made all of these investments. So I have to believe that she knew what she was
What she
doing.
was doing, yeah.
And that it was really from those investments that actually took care of her kids, which is my great uncle. I mean, my great uncle, and my grandmother, and then also my dad and his brother, and then so yes, I think that she knew what she was doing in terms of building a business, and she used that business to really protect us because this was segregated South, the railroad tracks. I mean,
and
my dad
made things better.
Made things better. Like when my dad was growing up, there wasn't even a high school for Black people in Martin County.
What?
So he had to move to Palm Beach to go to high school.
To get an education.
There was only one high school in Palm Beach for Black folks. So I think she knew what she was doing, and she used, the money that she had to really help our family. And if it wasn't for that, if it wasn't for both sides, if it wasn't for Rosie showing me the way to college, because that really wasn't my dad's family. Education was more entrepreneurial.
The first
and
thing.
if it wasn't for their entrepreneurial spirit, I wouldn't be where I am.
So you put it together.
Yeah.
So you totally put it together.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward. Youngest vice president at Bank of America?
American Express.
American Express, youngest vice president, American Express, launched the Gold Card. So what you did Bank of America, though? Where was Bank of America in that?
Bank of America was after college, between college and business school.
Got it.
And then I went to Harvard Business School and then went to work for American Express.
So your husband, Kevin Kofi, you met, where in that little contagion did you meet Kevin?
We both moved to New York after, for me after business school, him after law school and business school, because he got a JD MBA.
Yeah.
And we had both moved to New York. He was working for Salomon Brothers, and I was working at American Express. I did not meet him at Harvard. He went to Harvard.
That's what I was going to say. I thought you met him at Harvard.
Yeah, didn't meet him at Harvard, even though he says he met me.
You met him in the streets of New York.
I met him in New York at a party.
I know.
At a party. Now this is for all these women out there. A party that I didn't even want to go to.
You didn't want to go to.
But a friend of mine said, "Oh, you should come," and I was like, "Okay, I'll come." So, and there I met Kevin, and we've been together ever since.
I was going to say, and that was 30 years ago.
Yes,
30.
Well, over 30 years ago, because we just celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary.
I remember. Yes. So, and congratulations, 32 years, a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot, and it's great. And I've been with you guys all over the place, and they're very, very happy set of people. Yeah. So, so tell me about the work that you do at OneUnited Bank. Like, what moves you about the work that you do?
So just like economics was like a for me, banking was like a for me. Not in the beginning. In fact, in the beginning, when I worked at Bank of America, and then when I was getting out of business school, I was like, banking is just too stuffy. It's like, it doesn't fit me.
It's dusty. Remember when you came to us? You were like, we're dusty.
Yes. There was nothing exciting about it. Nothing.
Dry.
Yeah, it's dry. And so, but I liked the operations of money. I like the mechanics of money.
The system of money.
I like the system of money.
Yeah.
I just didn't like how it really was presenting itself.
Gotcha.
It's really how it's presenting itself.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, somewhat intentional. It was sort of like, we have all the money.
Yeah, like you don't need to know any of this information.
Yes, exactly.
Just go over there.
Yes,
yeah.
And just sort of that attitude of like, we're here with all the money, and we're going to
you're out there.
And you're out there, and we're going to treat you like, if you don't have any money, you can't be in here. I mean, that's so, opposite from the way I was raised, opposite from who I am. And so I didn't like banking, but I love the actual system of banking.
The system of banking, yeah.
And at some point, Kevin and I realized that in order to do what we wanted to do, which was to basically bank Black people, we had to own a bank.
Yeah.
That we couldn't partner with a bank because
then you're compromised.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we ended up buying our first bank.
Boston Bank of Commerce. That was previously Unity.
Bank and Trust. We ended up buying that in 1995. And then we bought 4 other banks. We bought People's here in Miami,
Liberty City.
and then we bought Family and Founders in LA. And they were all black banks. And we combined them into one, and then we changed our name to OneUnited Bank.
So logical. Perfect. And you told me that wasn't even the first name.
Well, no. So 2 things. One is that at that time, this was in like around 2000, we hired a firm to help us find a name.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Yes. And I realize, and this is what I promote now to all business owners, that it's really important that you own your trademark and your URL. Those are 2 things that you need to own.
You should own. They're like, they're tacit.
Yes. It's like real estate. You know, it's like if you are building your business with a name you don't own, you are building a business on someone else's
for somebody else.
Estate.
Yep.
So we went through a series of names that we thought were good, but we couldn't own the trademark or the URL. So I remember at the time, this is all the banks together, and we had a board, and it included Gerald Busby was on our board. He used to run Motown Records and a couple other...
Janet Jackson.
Yeah. Well, Janet Jackson's a shareholder. She wasn't on the board.
Sure. Okay.
But a couple other like LA types that were on our board. And I remember I came to present the new name. And I said to them, the new name of the bank is Perfect. And Jill looked and said, Perfect?
Perfect.
Like, Perfect Bank?
What kind of name is that?
I was like, no. It's a perfect name. That's not the name. That's not the name. And then we presented the name OneUnited, and he was like, oh, you're right.
It makes perfect sense.
Yes, it makes perfect sense. Yes.
Whenever I'm telling somebody this story, the 4 banks together, and I'm like, and OneUnited, it's just like, of course. It's perfect.
Right.
It's perfect.
Yes.
And so the bank has come. So here we are. The bank is 30 years old next year. You've owned it for 30 years.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say it's older than that.
Yes.
But yes.
So you've owned it for 30 years.
Yes, next year. Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, we only have a few more minutes, but tell me, what do you think OneUnited Bank has done for Black America?
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to say this humbly because, but at the same time, I think it's important. So what I think we've done is planted the seeds for what is now the Bank Black, Buy Black, Build Black movement. We went from a bank that used to describe itself as a community bank that happened to be Black. And you know this because you went through this transformation with us where we said, no. We're going to be unapologetically Black.
Blackity, blackity, black.
Blackity, blackity, black. And at the time, and you remember this, there was a lot of pushback. And people were like, maybe you should say urban.
Yeah, because their ice is colder.
Yes, exactly. They said white people aren't going to bank with you. Black people aren't going to bank with you if you just do the Black thing. But we're like, no. Like, if you're going to talk about somebody's money, you need to be authentic. You need to be you need to speak to them authentically. Yeah. You need to hear them authentically.
You're talking about their money.
You're talking about their money.
Hard-earned money.
Exactly. And that's who we are. And so we're going to speak in our authentic voice. We're a Black-owned bank, and that's who we are.
And so just working with you, I know that, being the leaders of this movement is like a great responsibility that you and Kevin, by the way, Kevin would not have said any of that humbly. They are very different people who make one really great team. But, Kevin is definitely, the thing I love about Kevin, in my mind, Kevin is like, I don't know if I've explained this to you before. Kevin is like the roux. So when I cook, I start with a roux. I start with butter and garlic and, tomatoes and onions and scallions and all the spices.
Making me hungry. Okay.
And I make a roux. It's like this base. And then on top of that comes all the other stuff, the meat and vegetables and everything.
Yeah.
And to me, Kevin is the roux.
Yeah.
You may not always see him. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But it's him.
Yeah.
He is the one that instills this creativity that runs through the center of the bank, that I can bring something to you and I'll be like, this is a great idea. And Kevin will be like, it's an okay idea. And then he'll take what I think is great, but it's apparently just okay. And he will turn it into something completely that I couldn't even see. And I'm always like,
Yeah.
amazed.
Yeah.
Amazed.
No, he's definitely a visionary is the way I would describe
Visionary.
it.
Oh my
And
God.
he sees things before they happen. And so another example in terms of what we've done for Black people, and I would say America, is the use of technology.
The technology, yes.
Again, because we were in Boston, Miami, and LA, we had to invest in technology.
How are we going to do all of this?
Exactly.
Oh my God, and they're so divergent.
Yes. Yeah. And what we also saw is the next generation and their use of smartphones. And, at the time it was computers, it was just desktops, but it eventually became phones, that we knew we had to do something different from a technological. So we're the first Black internet bank.
Yep, that's when I met
you. And so basically promoting to all businesses that you need to have, a website. You need to have a way for people to do business with you from across the country and in some cases across the world.
Yeah.
I mean, banking is limited to domestic unless you're an internationally chartered bank, but businesses can sell anywhere, goods and services. And so really focusing on technology as well as financial literacy.
Yes, financial. I remember I was watching the Citibank clip again the other day, and Kevin, illuminate. Oh no, maybe it was when I was watching CNBC, the documentary that was done on OneUnited Bank.
Yeah.
And he talked about, what am I trying to say? He talked about the technology, the George Floyd technology thing, and the fact that we would never have known any of that. Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, none of that would have been possible without technology.
Because
you don't even think about it.
How many times do they shoot us in the street? How many times do they put their knee on our neck and kill us?
They've been doing this.
They've been doing this forever.
But now we have.
But now we have exactly.
We have a phone.
Exactly. And we're showing the world. Yeah, and it really transforms, business, it transforms us. But the same thing with financial literacy, because I remember, when I started off in banking, they used to send you like the regulations, like paper form, and
oh my God,
and you'd update your books and stuff. And like now you can just go online and anybody can look at the regulations. And so it has democratized really knowledge so that you don't have to wait for someone to give you access to it. I ran into this great artist, which art, that's the other thing, Black art, Adonis Parker. On our cards. But I ran into this other artist who actually had been in jail for many years. And he said the first thing that he enjoyed when he got out was the fact that he can access information online, which he couldn't do when he was in prison. And so it just opened up his eyes to all of this work. And and that was someone who just recently had gotten out of prison. And so it's something that I think we take for granted.
Of course. You take it for granted.
But we shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
So you should go to OneUnited.com/learn.
Okay,
you can do financial literacy for free.
We've gone long. Thank you, Danny. Okay, so we find OneUnited at OneUnited.com.
Yes.
And if you want to learn all this stuff, OneUnited.com/learn.
Yes.
And OneUnited has a number of beautiful artistic cards with powerful Black art on them, done by local muralist Adonis Parker. We love you, Adonis. And so how can I get these cards? How can I find out more about financial literacy?
So you can go online to OneUnited.com, or you can, here in Miami, you can go into our branch on Northwest 79th Street and just open up an account. It's easy peasy.
Yes, we will.
And you don't have to be Black to bank Black.
You do not have to be Black. You do not have to be Black.
Right.
And so it is follow on Facebook, on Instagram, on everywhere.
Yes.
OneUnited Bank, the largest Black-owned bank in the country. Thank you very much. 100,000 customers. More than any other Black bank combined, in addition to the most amount of ATM surcharge-free in the country, more than any other bank.
More than any other bank. So you can go to Walgreens, 7-Eleven.
Everything.
Chase, Citibank branches.
Chase and Citibank, yes. So thank you, Teri.
Thank you.
We could talk forever, as you know. As soon as we hang up, we're just finish this, we're going to talk some more. And so you got to come back, and I want to hear the rest of the story about the Bank Black movement.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.